McHenry Cartridge is a small arms ammunition manufacturing company. We started in 2021 with the goal to deliver local ammo to local shooters. Out of the pandemic, there was a massive ammo shortage, and my partner and I decided that we would step into that and try and supply our local area with locally made quality ammunition. So we started with several different calibers, starting with 9mm, and since then we've made 14 more cartridges. We developed a series called the GTFO with the goal across all calibers to deliver the lightest, fastest possible projectile, starting with the 9mm. 9mm is our 68 grain monolithic copper extreme defense projectile from Lehigh Defense. We charge this to 1,776 feet per second and deliver the most kinetic energy possible for that caliber. So you might find some calibers out there that are or some projectiles that are a little bit faster, but as far as kinetic energy goes, this bullet will probably deliver the most kinetic energy for the 9mm on the market, followed by our 300 Blackout, 95 grain, controlled chaos. We charge that to 2,660 feet per second, again delivering the most kinetic energy for that caliber on the market. And last but not least, our 223, which is a 32 grain monolithic copper projectile, again from Lehigh Defense. We charge that to 4,000 feet per second. So we go to a lot of gun shows and tell people what our goal, our aim for this series is, and people are usually blown away by the velocity of a lot of these projectiles. So a common phrase that we would get is, "Oh no, get out of here," or get the fuck out. So we decided to name the series the GTFO. So the idea with the GTFO, we're charging this at 1,776 feet per second. So it has a massive amount of kinetic energy. So the more kinetic energy that you can transfer from the bullet into the target, it is going to create a large temporary cavity. And the temporary cavity is the initial impact and the stopping force factor for that projectile. So once it enters its target, it is dumping a massive amount of kinetic energy quickly, which causes a large temporary cavity, which gives you your initial stopping power. So unlike a fragmenting or even a hollow point, this is a monolithic solid copper projectile. It is not going to fragment or break apart or expand for that matter. It's going to stay intact after it enters its target. From a hunter aspect, right. So once it enters its target, it will not fragment or break apart, so you'll have one projectile to pull out. It won't be shrapnel inside of all the meat or whatever. And you won't need to pick out individual pieces of lead in a lot of cases, but in this case copper. It'll stay together intact, and you only got to find one projectile in your carcass. If I were to have a choice in concealed carry, I would definitely stay with the GTFO. It has the most stopping power of any caliber that we offer or that's commercially available today. So a lot of questions that we get when we go to the shows is, what is the weight of the projectile, and we'll give them our answer. And the response that we'll get oftentimes is, "Oh, that's too light for me. I like to shoot a 124 or 124 grain is the best." And we'll often ask why. And the answer that we'll get back is, "Oh, it hits harder," or it's got a better punch to it. And that's fine if it's a matter of preference if you're used to the recoil or the amount of drop in your shot. But if your aim is to deliver kinetic energy is 1/2 mass velocity squared. And so if you square the velocity, you are quadrupling the amount of kinetic energy that projectile has. Even if you double the mass, you are only doubling the kinetic energy. So you get more kinetic energy by virtue of increasing the velocity than you do the mass. So if you can find a light projectile and charge it as fast as you can, you will deliver the most kinetic energy possible. One of the questions we get a lot is where do we source our components, or how do we source our components? And one of the things about being a commercial loader like we are is we get to pick and choose which projectile, which case, powder, primer we want to use in our cartridges. So for our 9mm, our 380, 300 Blackout, we use the Shell Shock technology cases. It's a nickel alloy steel case, and those are made to hold pressures almost twice that of brass. So like our 9mm and 380, it's twice the strength of brass, half the weight, and they eject cool at a touch. So for each one of those calibers, we use that case. We like to use the Lovix powder D036. That powder is good for every handgun caliber up to 500 Smith & Wesson. So we're able to have a low pressure round with the same powder, allows us to be flexible across all the cartridges that we use, and utilize the same powder and send it off for pressure testing and all that, and make sure that we're within a standard SAMI spec. But we don't have to curate and buy several different powders. And as far as the projectiles go, you know, we have more coming onto the market now, but we have our pick of a Hornady, a Lehigh Defense, a Cam Pro, and we get to pick and choose what is the best combination for each one of those calibers. A lot of those big box manufacturers, Remington, Winchester, you know, they produce their own cases, powder, primer, and bullet, and they have to stay within those constraints, where we get to pick the best of what's available to us now and develop those cartridges accordingly. So a lot of questions that we'll get is, you know, oh, these are reloads, you make these by hand. And while we are not a reloading company, we do have a pretty sophisticated machine. So the machine is capable of doing a lot of quality checks while it's in production. We have 7 onboard sensors for primer depth, powder measure, powder sensing, powder check, bullet height, bullet presence, and that's just on the machine level. So the machine will spot check each one of those, every single cartridge. After the cartridge is made, we'll send it to our polisher. We'll clean, tumble, and polish, get rid of a lot of that oily residue that is inherent from manufacturing. And after we clean and polish it, we send it to our shaker table. The shaker table will sort and caliber check 2,100 cartridges at a time. What we do is we have a checker block, and we will every box, this is a 50 count, will be caliber checked to SAMI minimum to make sure that primer is oriented correctly, the case length is appropriate, and it chambers. So every single cartridge that we make is 100% chamber checked, and from there it goes right into our packaging and labeled and shipped. Prior to a production run for a new caliber, what we'll do is we will send each one of our cartridges down for pressure testing. So the third-party pressure tester is a ballistics guy, and they pressure test every one of our cartridges, new development, to make sure that we're within SAMI pressure. So a lot of the cartridges that we make, we try and gas it as fast as we can safely. And so in order to do that, we have to know that the pressures are going to be safe that we're not exceeding SAMI pressures. While we're making ammo, we'll do spot checks. You know, we'll make sure that for each particular cartridge there's the SAMI spec, and we'll make sure that the case length, the overall cartridge length is correct, the width of the cartridge is correct within SAMI spec, and the primer depth. So there's about 3 different measurements that we'll measure randomly as we're in production on every caliber, to make sure that nothing has changed in the setup of the machine, or there's a rogue case, primer, or whatever. So who is our biggest customer, or who are our customers? We cater to a variety of different shooters. So your local gun range shooter, somebody who wants to support a local business, but we have also branched into a couple of law enforcement jobs. So there are a couple of police departments in our county that have purchased ammo from us. One of the loads that we're in development is for a rifle round, a 308 barrier buster, so it's a solid projectile. It is probably at the edge of the limits for our license, being that it is not an armor piercing round, but behaves as one. So you know, the local law enforcement have been very open to using a local company to provide them with both their duty rounds and their training rounds. A lot of customers, yeah, we see a lot of people at the gun shows, and a lot of people that approach our table are new to firearms, and so they'll come up and they'll ask us, you know, what what is good for this situation? What do I need to learn on for this? And we're happy to have a conversation with them about, hey, if you want a 380, a 9, if you want to go and punch holes through paper at the range, or if you your intent is to conceal carry. A lot of our customers are taking concealed carry classes, qualifying with our ammo, and we offer a variety of round nose, self-defense, different type of projectiles for each scenario.